and welcome back. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. Today we're going to be talking about a new to me brand called Lethal Cosmetics. And Lethal Cosmetics is an ethically conscious brand out of Germany. So they are in Berlin and they're 100% vegan and cruelty free. And what they're really known for are their eyeshadows and the blushes and highlights. So I've heard great things about those. I picked up eyeshadows that we will be testing out today, and I have been wearing them for the last week. So I've been testing them out. We're going to discuss the formula and the shades and do some comparisons as well. Now, Lethal Cosmetics started off as an indie brand and is owned by like a husband and wife who worked together to create some cosmetics that they couldn't get readily in Berlin, and it just kind of blew up. So I think this was only like 3-4 years ago that they started this company, and they sold out immediately, and basically they've gone from indie to like a mainstream brand, and it's just really kind of starting off here in the US. I mean, you've been able to purchase Lethal Cosmetics before, but we didn't have any US retailers, and Camera Ready Cosmetics is the first US retailer to carry them. And as such, they were able to do a collaboration palette, which is what I picked up. So I bought this from Camera Ready Cosmetics. This is one of the eyeshadow palettes. It retails for $65. And they do have, they have other items on their site. So this is the eyeshadow palette. So it comes in this envelope here, and it has a 24-month shelf life. It's made in Germany. This is recyclable. You've got cardboard packaging. You do have the pinholes on the back so that you are able to, remove the shadows. And then inside we have a mirror, and this is the palette I picked. So they do have some other palettes on Camera Ready Cosmetics site, or if you go directly to Lethal Cosmetics, you can see a lot of other choices as well. I chose this one to start with because the colors, honestly, it's this color and this color here that were really drawing me in. So I think they are gorgeous. And this particular palette is exclusive to Camera Ready Cosmetics. It was kind of like a collaboration. I'm not really sure what the purpose was, but I think it was because they are the first US retailer, which is, a big accomplishment. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. So as I mentioned, we have a mirror here, and I left the film on so far. So got the film on the mirror. And then there's a little quote here at the base of the mirror. And this one says, "Today is a good day to make memories." And from other photos of palettes that I've seen, it looks like every palette has a different quote. So it does have magnetic closure. And as I mentioned, you have the pinholes to remove the pans. Now, this palette has a mix of textures and finishes. We have mattes, we have metallics, and we have some duochromes. Now, I have to say, I don't find any of them to be a strong duochrome, but they are mentioned as a duochrome. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at some swatches first. This is the top row. We have a pearly pink shade, a kind of like this coppery gold shade in the middle. And I have to say that's a very creamy metallic. It's a really nice creamy feel. And so the pink is shimmery. This is metallic. And then we have this matte shade, and it's kind of like an ivory with a touch of peach and rose to it. So it's not going to be, you can see in the pan, it's kind of like a cream base with a little bit of pink and peach to it. This is the middle row here. Okay, so we have kind of like this light camel shade matte. So you can see it's more of a yellow-based cream. And then we have a nice kind of a chocolate matte shade, and it's a pretty neutral brown. There's a little bit of a red in it and a little bit of grayish tones to it. It makes it pretty neutral overall. I think it's a really great complement to the other shades in here. And then we have another metallic, and I love this shade. You can see that it's this rich cranberry shade. And then this is the bottom row. So in the bottom row, we have this bright orangey red. You can see it's actually more orange than red, but it's very vibrant. It kind of looks like, you know, the Crayola crayons, the red orange shade. It looks like that, but metallic. And then we have more of a rusty red metallic shade. I think this one is really pretty, and you can see when I fan that out that you've got a bit of a brown base to it. And then the last shade here is kind of like a deep mulberry kind of shade, and it's a matte. So here's the palette overall. So looking at all of these shades, I would categorize this light frosty pink at the top. This is more of like a shimmery ballet pink shade. I would classify this as a shimmer, this coppery gold as a metallic. Then we have mattes here. These three are mattes. Then this one is a metallic, but it's a softer metallic. It's not going to be quite as creamy as this one up here, as the coppery gold. So, you know, it's a little bit of a drier formula. This red one here is similar. So these two are very similar in texture, whereas the coppery gold one is going to be a little bit creamier. And then this one has, this orange shade has kind of a metallic look to it, but it's really more of a shimmer. So it has the same finish as the pearly pink. And then the other shades are mattes. So I have worn these shadows, as I mentioned, for about a week, and I've worn them with and without primer, and I didn't include a wear test in the video, but I did do a wear test, so I'll give you the results of that. First, let's go ahead and take a look at the looks that I created. So I filmed 3 looks that I'm including here today, and then we'll discuss my thoughts and the formula and do some comparisons as well. I'm going to start off with the Lethal Cosmetics palette, and I'm going into this shade here, which is, if you're looking at it upright, it is the top row, far right. And I'm using the Chikuhodu KZ06, which is just like this big fluffy brush. And I'm using this as a base, and I'm brushing it all the way up to the brow bone. Next, I'm taking the Sonia G Crease Pro, and I'm going into the very first shade, which looks like to be a really soft pearlescent pink. I'm going to put this into the crease area here and buff it a little bit higher. I really like this soft petal pink. That. Next, I'm taking the Sonia G Soft Shader, and I'm going to go into the gold. I'm going to put this in the inner corner and brush that out a little bit. That is definitely very vibrant. I was thinking it would be a little bit softer because I'm so used to things shearing out a little bit more, but that is a true gold there. Next, I'm using the same brush. I'm going into this purpley shimmer shade, and I'm going to put this on the rest of the lid here. So just kind of tapping lightly where the gold is. And then I'm actually spreading this one. Then I'm going back in with the Crease Pro into the pearly pink, and I'm just going to add a touch more of this in the crease to kind of blend out a little bit of the deeper shade on the edges as well. I'm taking the Chikuhodu KZ08 in this pearly pink, and I'm going to add a dab of this to the inner corner and the lower lash line. To finish off the eyes, I'm going to line them with the Victoria Beckham Satin Kajal in Cocoa. And I'm going to put this on the waterline, on the lower lash line. And I just want to see how well this stays during the day. I haven't tried it this way yet. Taking a little bit more of the light pink and putting that underneath the eye kaajal. All right, I'm gonna add some mascara and finish my makeup. The lower lash line with the eye kaajal is not as neat as I would like it to be, but we're gonna see how this wears throughout the day. So this is the final look from a distance, and I have on the Chantecaille Future Skin. This is the gel foundation in the jar, and I have the shade Porcelain on, along with the Le Camouflage Stilo in shade 1. Then I have the Suku Blush Palette 101. I use this shade here for blush, and I use the Chantecaille Eclat Dew for finishing powder. And then on my lips, I have the Pat McGrath Lip Pencil in Half Naked and the Suku Lip Fog in 103, and they are a very good match together. And excuse this, I apparently have like a bug bite or something here, so it's a little swollen and red and angry looking, so just kind of left that alone. But that is the finished look for today. Okay, so I forgot to hit record. I'm using the Royalty 355, and I went into this khaki shade here, and I just put this in the crease. So that's all I've done so far. And I'm not using primer today. And now I'm going to take the Royalty 225, and I'm going into this matte, kind of like matte cranberry raspberry kind of shade. And this brush here is, you know, it might kind of look like a crease brush, but it's not. It's like a domed brush. I'm going to apply this to the outer corner here. And then I'm going back in with the 355. I'm going into this light pearly pink, and I'm going to put this kind of all over. And I'm going on top of the matte shade as well. I like those just as it is. I think that's just a really pretty color there. So I'm just taking the 355, and I don't have any more shadow, but I'm just kind of blending the crease area a little bit. You know, I want to leave this eye simple today, so I'm taking the pencil brush from Royalty. This is 331. I'm going to go into this matte brown, and I'm just going to lightly smudge this along the upper and lower lash line. And I'm just going back in with the 225. I don't have any shadow on here. I wiped it off before, but I'm just kind of blurring those edges with the brown a little bit. All right, so I think that's going to be it today. I just kind of want to keep this light and bright. I'm just going to add a touch more of the soft pearly pink with my finger and just add this kind of to the center of the lid just to make it a little bit more vibrant there. And just kind of smudging that line again because I kind of covered it up a little bit too much. Okay, I wiped off the pencil brush, going in with the pearly pink. And again, this is 331. I'm just going to add some to the inner corner here. And this is the finished look for today. So I have the Chanel Holiday Blush on, the Chaîne de Chanel, along with the Pat McGrath Holiday Highlighter, or, you know, the Sublime Skin Highlighter. And then I have the Sisley lipstick in 15 Beige Manhattan. And a foundation today is the Chantecaille Future Skin Cushion in Aura. And I have a very light dusting of the Sisley Phyto Puja Compact. And that's it. Using the Esom G34 into this shade here, which is third on the top. Then I'm going into this cranberry shade on the bottom. This is the Royalty 226. It's just a small crease brush. And I'm going to add this to the crease. Next, I'm taking the Sonia G Soft Shader in this red shade. And I'm going to put this right in the center. That is a vibrant red. And you can see that it's kind of like an orangey red. Next, I'm going to go into the shade next to it. And I'm still using the Sonia G Soft Shader. I'm going to put this on the outer half. And I'm actually going to add this to the inner half too. I'll just cover all the rest of the lid space. Okay, wiping off the brush, I'm going into the pale pink, and I'm just going to add a touch of this to tap it right on top here in the inner portion. So I'm not covering that whole area there, but just a little bit. So I just wiped off the brush. I'm just feathering those edges together so there's more of a gradual fade into the red. Taking the Chikuhodo KZ08 into that sparkly pink, and I'm just adding a tiny dab of this right here in the inner corner. I'm just going in with the ESM G34 and just some light blending here. And then to line the upper lash line, I'm going in with the Guerlain Matte Eyes Contrast Duo. I'm using the brown duo. So I'm going to go into the warm brown for the upper lash line, and then the other side, the golden brown for the lower lash line. And I'm using this really tiny little pencil brush. This is 332 from Royalty. I got the eyeshadow directly on the brush. I'm just going to put this on. So this is the final look up close, and I'll show you a distance shot. And this is the final look from a distance. So I have on the Guerlain Matte Eyes Mascara in brown, and again I used the Guerlain Matte Eyes Brown Duo for the upper and lower lash line. On my lips I have the Chanel eyeliner in Romance, topped with the Rouge Coco Flash in Lust. And on my cheeks I have the Dior Holiday Blush in the Rose Frisson and the Pat McGrath Holiday Highlight. And for powder, I used this from last year's holiday. This is the Givenchy Prisme Libre in number 10, Sparkling Mousseline. And that's it. So I have to say that I am very happy with this palette. I think everything performed beautifully. I was able to get a full day's worth of wear without using a primer with these shadows. After somewhere between 8 and 10 hours, I did notice, that they didn't look as good. And I think there was a little bit of fading of some of the shimmers when I didn't use the primer, but nothing significant. Everything really held up well until I had them on for over 12 hours. And by that time I was seeing like creasing, in the crease area, and they weren't looking so hot, but everything held up well for somewhere between 8 and 10 hours without a primer. With a primer, they've lasted until I've taken them off. And I have to say that I didn't really have any issues with these shades, with sometimes with metallics, how you have them kind of like fade or fall. So they're more pigmented closer to the lash line as the time passes. And again, I was able to really get through the majority of the day before I noticed any of that happening, even without the primer. With the primer, I didn't really have any of that happen at all. So I used the NARS eye primer and the Viseart primer, and both of them worked equally well to, kind of create the longevity of the eyeshadows. However, I have to say that the formulas of these are very different. This one has a much more silicone-based feeling. So sometimes when you have a primer on your eyelids, especially like a sticky base, if you go and blend a shadow on top of it, you can kind of get it like stuck in patches. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. So it doesn't happen with the Viseart primer because it does have more of that smooth silicone feeling, but that can happen with the NARS. And I have to say that Lethal Cosmetics recommends if you use a primer with their shadows, and they do state that it's not necessary, But if you choose to use a primer, they recommend setting your primer with some powder before applying the shadows for the smoothest finish. Now, as for the performance of the different finishes, I found all of them to work equally well. I didn't have problems with any of the shades. I didn't have problems blending out any of the shades. I do have some favorites. This light pink, if you could probably tell by watching the looks, I think I use this every single day. I love this shade. It's the perfect light ballet pink. As I mentioned in the beginning, they're calling some of these duochromes. I don't really see any sort of real color shift. The closest would be like maybe the slightest touch of blue in this pearly pink shade, but I don't really consider any of these shades to be an actual duochrome in my opinion. But I have to say that I think the addition of this shade really helps this whole palette. It really balances everything out very nicely, and it's a cooler tone pink, and a lot of these shades are very warm. So I think the addition of this shade and this matte shade here, for me, they really balance the palette and they make it more wearable on a daily basis. I don't have to go bright like this. There are so many neutral looks I can get from this as well. And I have to say, this shade and this cranberry metallic shade, those were my two favorites. Now, all of these shadows are easily picked up by brushes. I did try synthetic, goat hair, and squirrel hair. I didn't have issues with any of them. All of the pigments applied easily, and fallout wasn't really an issue with any of these. As you can see, this is what the pans look like after I have been using them for about a week, and they didn't get super dirty. There's not like a lot of powder kick up or anything like that. So these metallics, they go on very easily, very smoothly on the eyes, but they're not powdery and they're not that super soft cream. Their texture is kind of in the middle there. So it's a little bit firmer in the pan than, for example, a Natasha Denona metallic, but it picks up incredibly easily. It's not one that you have to like press hard or kind of dig or swirl into the product with. So I thought that was a really nice touch, because you just never know what you're going to get, especially with metallic shades and the amount of fallout that you can get. And I found that these really didn't have any. So overall, in regards to the formula, I really do like the formula of these, and I would definitely be interested in trying more products from Lethal Cosmetics. So they are definitely a brand that is on my radar, and I'll be checking out more things from them in the future. Now, before we finish up, let's take a look at some color comparisons. This is the Tom Ford Mercurial Quad, and I think it's really mostly this like berry shade down here that reminded me of it, but we're going to swatch the whole palette here just for comparison. So here's Mercurial, and actually they're not that similar. You can actually see that the brown in Mercurial is cooler tone than this. This is definitely more neutral, whereas this leans slightly cooler here. And these two lighter shades, it's kind of like they're reversed in a way. So I think this matte shade here is more similar in color to the first shimmer shade in the Tom Ford, but obviously it's matte and not metallic. And then we've got kind of like a pink tone here versus a peachy tone in Mercurial. This shade is closest to this red metallic, but you can see that there's more of a brown base in the Tom Ford, and this is going to be a little bit more red, whereas this is a little bit more brown. Let's take a look at Honeymoon also. And again, pretty similar comparisons here. I do think that the brown is going to be more similar to the one in Lethal here. Let me swatch that for you right by it. So there's still slightly more of a reddish tone to the one in Lethal compared to the one in Honeymoon, but it is going to be closer than that in Mercurial, just very slightly. These lighter two shades, they don't really match up. And again, this berry shade, that is going to be, again, just not quite there. So that's the one from Lethal. You can see how much more red that is to this cranberry shade. And this is the cranberry shade in Lethal. So you can see that that's definitely gonna be more like a berry pink shade comparatively. It's sort of like the two of those mixed together in a softer version. And that's really all I have for comparisons. I definitely don't have anything like this orange shade. If I had to pick favorite shades from these, I would definitely go with this pearly pink, this light matte shade, this metallic cranberry, and this metallic red. I think that this last matte shade here and this brown matte shade are vital to the palette. The other shades, I think all, complement everything very well, and they're great to have in there for different looks. But if I had to pick just two favorites, it would definitely be the pearly pink and this cranberry metallic shade. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this palette and on Lethal Cosmetics in general. Are you interested in seeing more from this brand? What do you think? So let me know your thoughts down below in the description box. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like button. That really helps my channel a lot. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe and healthy, and I will see you very soon.